Welcome back to the Get There One Day podcast. This is episode 2, and this time we're going to be looking at how we can essentially become more productive and lock in, but without absolutely draining ourselves and quitting after a few days trying. And specifically, we're going to hone in on killing doom scrolling, getting rid of that horrible habit that I'm sure we all have. But before we get into that, we've got some feedback and a question from one of our listeners, which is not something I thought I'd be saying on episode 2. So, Anthony listened to our podcast, very much enjoyed it. He said he'd like us to disagree a bit more, which we're absolutely happy to do. We love a bit of disagreeing. And the question for us today is, at what point do you think it's appropriate to disagree with your partner's parents? I think specifically he means arguing to their face.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Charlie?
I think we discussed this a minute ago. He's probably got this question from my story in the last episode about where my girlfriend and I had a disagreement with my parents regarding
Mhm.
me going to uni, etc. And that was early. That was after 3 months, three and a half months. So it was quick, which probably isn't the right thing to do. I mean, it really depends on your situation. If you feel comfortable with that family and you think that you can have those disagreements without it being detrimental to your relationship, then fine. Whereas if you feel like you're treading on eggshells, then actually, I don't know if it's, I don't know if to say that's the wrong thing for you or whether that means you're in the wrong relationship or whatever, because you can't, that's not a deal breaker as such. But the bottom line is you should feel comfortable after a certain point, within the first few months, really being able to voice your opinion without being disrespectful, of course. What do you think?
I think I'd certainly be more reserved about arguing with parents. I mean, my flatmates were inclined to say that maybe the guy has more right to argue with the parents than the girl has, which we're not going to
I
agree with.
I
Can't
don't,
endorse
I
that.
don't think I agree.
No.
I think you should be able. I think you should be able to disagree but not argue. And I think he used the word argue, didn't he? Or did he use the word disagree? Because
Disagree.
I think a polite and respectful disagreement is very different to basically just shouting at them.
Yeah.
Um, if they've
Would
done
you say
something
you like regret maybe how you went about the disagreement?
parts of it. I think the main sort of premise of the disagreement was Georgia and I were voicing concerns to my family about the way we felt about certain things, and since then, and then my family voiced their concerns about things that myself and Georgia had done, and that since that conversation has happened, both of us have changed our behaviors and the relationship's improved. So I think that's what I'm saying. You need to sort of feel comfortable. If you feel uncomfortable about something, you need to feel like you're comfortable voicing those concerns, because otherwise you're just going to be unhappy in the long term. It's the same as any relationship. If they're doing something that annoys you, you need to respectfully be able to voice those concerns, I think. But as you say, without arguing or doing anything that's detrimental to the relationship.
Yeah, it's tough. And as you say, it depends on the situation. I haven't had any cause to really argue with George's parents at this point, which I'm quite happy about, really.
Which would,
Yeah. Um, yeah. Should we get into the episode? Thanks for that
yeah,
question, Anthony.
let's get into it. So, I mean, we did allude to it in the last episode that you're building Supercharged. You spoke a little bit about what that's about, and trying to kill that doom scrolling, as we said earlier. Um, I think with the research you've done and the work you've been doing, you've become a little bit of an expert on that mindless scrolling and what drives it and how we can try and stop it. So, how do you think somebody can sort of try and eliminate this mindless scrolling, or at least reduce it without becoming socially isolated and sort of hating their life?
Yeah. I mean, again, I've got to stress, I'm not actually an expert. I'm not a psychologist. We're not experts in any of these things. But as you say, I do have a bit of experience in this area. Um, I think it's safe to say that no one really likes having a scrolling habit. Um, I think our relationships with our phones have become pretty detrimental to our productivity. I'd say I wouldn't need to fact check that the biggest thing that hampers productivity these days is looking at your phone whilst you're trying to revise or study or whatever. And you used to go on Instagram back in the day, or at least I did, to actually like text people or see what they were doing. I think,
Intentionally.
yeah, I think the doom scrolling thing has sort of gradually evolved as their algorithms have improved. I don't think, in like year 8 or whenever we first started using it, I'm sure for you it was younger. Um, I don't think we were doom scrolling too much. I mean, maybe I'm misremembering. But I think it's something that's kind of gradually worsened over time as it's become more of a habit because it is a very addictive and, easy habit to fall into. And, 30 minutes afterwards, your time's disappeared, you've fallen down a sinkhole, you feel despair sometimes. And I personally feel terrible about it. And I'm sure this is a feeling that is replicated with a lot of people. Um, so yeah, as you say, I'm building Supercharged, which I'll talk about a bit more later, but it's essentially so that we can detach from our mindless scrolling and actually redirect that habit into something powerful, something that actually keeps you in the loop with your friends still, because that's a big friction point about quitting social media. You don't want to quit because that's where all your friends are, right? Um, so yeah, this episode is all about looking at how we can redirect habits, specifically doom scrolling, replace them with something better. Scroll the news, read a book, something which fixes your attention span, which is another huge problem we'll get into.
I
Um,
mean, I don't think, just quickly on that, I don't think these apps were created with the intention of, people spending 8 hours a day just scrolling mindlessly. I think that's, as you say, evolved over time when, the founders have realized actually it's far more profitable to have people on that app like 5, 6 hours a day. You scroll through TikTok, and I saw a video the other day where it said, if you could tell me what the video was that you saw three scrolls ago, I'll be shocked because it literally, it's
Terrible. Yeah.
so, yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, I mean it's just a productization of us. Like we're now the product. They're not charging for it. And why do you think they're not charging for it? They're not charging for it because you're literally paying them by watching these things. I mean, if you think about TikTok, I feel like every maybe three scrolls you'll probably see some sort of TikTok shop advert in some
Oh mate,
capacity.
it's infuriating. And then you get two ads in a row, and then you get a TikTok shop. It's just
Right.
terrible.
I mean
And
it's
you
all
still, and
like
even though that, and that really worsens your scrolling experience, but it's still, you still do it because it's just, what else are you
that's the
gonna do?
thing. The scrolling experience isn't even that good anymore.
It's
Like the
not
amount of rubbish that you see on there. So we need a whole reset, to be honest.
100%.
Maybe it's a bit
100%.
naive of me to think that I can do that with Supercharged, but we're sure going to try. Um, so yeah, as we talked about, you kind of see your 30 minutes disappearing, even when you've gone on the app just to, check a message or something, and then you don't even end up checking the message. Um, and I think this detriment to our lives makes the kind of lock-in lifestyle that we actually do see proliferated on social media actually seem more appealing. Um, but I think it seems a bit out of reach going from, this place where everything's just on a plate for you, everything's provided, just going into your mind without you having to try, to then go to a lifestyle where you're putting in work every day, continually, and, it's mentally challenging for a sustained period as well. That seems unrealistic. So it's about how we can kind of go from the one to the other gradually, because it's all about gradual changes that we can make to our life.
Yeah.
The people who wake up at 4 a.m. and make these crazy morning routines, Ashton Hall style, um, some of that is not real, right?
Unsustainable as well. You could do it maybe
Yeah.
one day a week max.
And Ashton Hall, he did not wake up at 4 a.m. to film those because it was broad daylight outside. If you've ever tried waking up at 4 a.m., as you have, Charlie, and we'll speak about this in a second, it's pitch black outside. It's
Yeah.
gloomy. It's dismal.
Even in June, it's still like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
what time of year where you are, it's gonna be, yeah.
Yeah, that
So
is the middle of the night, right?
yeah.
So if you find that waking up at 4 a.m. is perfect for you, and the big benefit of that is, you've got that period from like 4 till maybe 8 or 9 before work starts or school starts, whatever, where you've got, focus just to yourself because no one's distracting you. That is a benefit of it. But if you're waking up feeling like a ghoul, then, maybe you need to
Reconsider.
rethink it. Yeah.
100%. Yeah, you need to ease yourself in, don't you? It's
Yeah.
like habit stacking, things like that. You can't have one day where you wake up at 9:30, sit in bed until 10, scrolling, and then be a thumb to then go the next day to waking up at 4 a.m. because it's just a complete lifestyle shift. Like, it's not sustainable at all. You need to, change one habit at a time, and as you say, incrementally build it up. I mean, you said getting up at 4 a.m. Like during our GCSEs, I think in the January we had our mocks, and I did quite badly. And I was like, right, I'm locking in. We're changing this now. I'm going to change every single element of my life. Um, So sort of late Feb, early March, I committed to waking up at 4, half 4 every day. So our routine was we'd get picked up by the bus at about 7, get into school for, well, quarter to 8, 8 o'clock. So I thought if I get up at 4, half 4, that gives me 2.5, 3 hours to be productive and get stuff done before the day starts. So my plan was I'd get up at 4 to go to the gym before school. I deleted TikTok. And instead of doing anything, unproductive in my spare time, I would read fiction books. Like I read American Psycho at this point for whatever reason. I thought, yeah, that would be a good way to get myself locked in. Um, but and I did it for probably 2 weeks. But as I'd get to the evening, I mean, we'd be at school until probably half 5, 6 o'clock. We'd get home about 6, and I'd be exhausted. I have no energy to do anything, let alone revise. Like I wouldn't want to sit there and do schoolwork at the end of that because I was just knackered. Um, and then when it got to sort of the Easter holidays, I binned it off. I thought, what am I doing here? I'm wasting my life. I binned it off. I'd get up at a more reasonable time, like 8 o'clock in the holidays. I'd do 4 or 5 hours of decent revision and then go to the gym, play football, something like that. Like something where, I had a healthy relationship with my work and a good work-life balance. And actually I ended up getting really good results on that routine. Whereas if I'd have just stuck with doing that nonsense, that monk mode nonsense, it's so unsustainable. I hated it. I was knackered all the time. I didn't even the gym session at 4 o'clock was terrible quality because like I was working on probably 6 hours sleep max if I was lucky. I had no sort of I wasn't even motivated. And to top it all off, it was literally like a little gym in my parents' cellar. Like it wasn't like I was doing anything optimal. So I was completely wasting my time. And that's what we're sort of trying to get to here. It's not about just doing what looks good on TikTok and following these gurus. It's about what works for you. Because actually, long term, if you've got a healthy relationship with it, you know, it's going to be
Yeah, I
most
think
valuable.
the way it gets portrayed online is that, you start waking up at 4 a.m., your life's going to change. Your life's certainly going to change. You're going to feel horrendous, most likely. You need to try what works for you. If waking up at like 10 is what feels good for you, and then you can work till, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, 1 in the morning, do that. It's just some of us, as you know, there's kind of the whole like night owl and early bird thing, which is it's proven that some people work better in the morning and some people work better in the evening. Often, this is just entirely based on how you've done it up to that point. So if you grow up just going to bed late, likely you're going to be a night owl. And if you've always woken up early, you're probably going to be more of a morning person, which I think, in my experience, that's kind of what I'm like. Um, so yeah, find what works for you. And I think, yeah, they make it seem like, it's all about how much work you put in, when really I think we need to put more of an emphasis on how well you do the work, and how focused your work is. Often it's what you do, not how you do it.
I mean, I talked about, as you say, it's what you do, not how you do it. It's not necessarily a one size fits all solution. Your success depends more on you as a person and the work you're willing to put in, whenever that is, whether that's at 12 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning. It really doesn't matter. You don't need to change every single facet of your life. Like I talked then about deleting TikTok, deleting Instagram, etc. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily completely withdrawing yourself from those apps is the best way to go about it because you need some sort of downtime, right? And if that is half an hour scrolling TikTok before bed, then that's not the end of the world. You were late to get social media for our friend group. I mean, there's definitely a social cost of not being on these apps. Can you talk a bit more about that, about when we were growing up?
Yeah, so I was trying to remember exactly when I got it. I think there was a time when I had social media, you know, slightly, and then there was a time when I was kind of allowed a bit more social media. Um, I was very annoyed about it. I didn't like that my parents were restricting my access to social media. Honestly, I wish I'd paid them more heed, really, because I don't think now, looking back, that it's something that's really benefited me. I was someone who did, as you say, read a lot of fiction books back in the day, and those sorts of things. And I find now that focusing on longer tasks is just more difficult, because you've got this thing that's just constantly there, just buzzing in your pocket. And I mean, I'm personally a do not disturb warrior anyway, but it's still
Like the
sometimes just
hardest
feels
person to get in contact with I've ever known.
Oh, just ring me twice, it's fine. But yeah, I mean, obviously everyone's got it, and that's why I wanted it because I felt like I was missing out socially because everyone else has it. So there's this social pressure to have social media. But really, if you think about the truly meaningful connections and the memories you've got, it's all of stuff that we've done in person, or at least like
Mm.
maybe on the phone. Um, so, I think now people who are used to social media, I wouldn't say they use social media to communicate that much. I feel like Snapchat or iMessage or WhatsApp is what people mainly use to communicate now, and they're not quite the same. I mean, obviously, you can doom scroll on Snapchat as well, but thankfully, I've never fallen down that rabbit hole. Um, so that's kind of a bit of a grey area, but I think less so. I mean, I remember I used to think that Instagram was the place for group chats and stuff, but I don't really have any group chats on Instagram anymore.
I
They're all
mean, the last time I got a group chat notification from Instagram at the weekend because someone that I was in a group chat with was part. You probably got the same notification, was part of a crypto scam, and was sending this crypto thing to like
yeah.
all of the group chats we were part of. And I looked at when this group chat, which had a whole friend group from school, was last year's, and it was like 2021. So
Mm.
people don't like again talk about using social media to communicate. I saw one of our good friends from school in a charity shop in the Cotswolds the other day, and he was like one of our best mates. It's the first time I've seen him for the best part of a year, and like I haven't really messaged him that much or done anything. We send each other the occasional reel or TikTok or anything, but people don't use social media for its intended use anymore, really. And I think it's really important to, if you are going to be on social media, use it intentionally. Pick up your phone and send someone a message. Keep in touch with one of your friends or something like that. Don't just pick it up and you can, of course, do sometimes, but don't spend hours of your day sitting there just scrolling. But equally, don't go monk mode and completely delete everything and isolate yourself because actually you can use social media for the good purpose of staying in contact with your mates and sort of keeping connected so you don't become completely isolated.
Yeah, honestly, I think I'm more to the side of just I would delete them all. I'm obviously a bit antisocial sometimes. Um, but yeah, as you say, there does need to be a balance.
So, like for you at uni, not to interrupt, but for you at uni, say in the summer, you go home in May, come back to uni in August, say, that's 3 months without, you don't live anywhere near your flatmates, any of them. So, what would be the, like, how would you solve that particular
Mm.
issue?
I mean, yeah, I think like when I think about how I keep in contact with them, it's solely in our group chats. I don't. Maybe it's useful for maybe a few of my lesser acquaintances to kind of see what they're up to, or if you want to see what your old schoolmates are up to or whatever. Um, it's certainly still got value. And with Supercharge, it's certainly not trying to just replace doom scrolling because it's impossible to give people that same kind of dopamine hit.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think you've looked a bit into like what happens in your brain with the whole doom
Yeah.
scrolling thing. So do you want to
I
touch
mean,
on
as you
that?
say, we keep nailing in the point that we're not experts. Like I'm not a neuroscientist, as you say, but I
Not
do a
yet,
little
bro.
bit of research. I did a bit of research back in the day when I was doing all this monk mode nonsense of waking up at 4 in the morning and deleting all this stuff and seeing what actually happens in your brain. Doom scrolling, and most people know this, doom scrolling, and we said it ourselves, the scrolling experience isn't actually very good. It's not enjoyable. It's just compelling. It's you can't not do it almost. Um, and you said yourself, growing up without sort of that, well, now having spent a lot of time on social media growing up, you need a lot of background noise and it's sort of constantly that humming in your brain. And having scrolling going on it gives you that absence of anxiety and it's not pleasure, it's not enjoyable, it's not fun, but it's just you're not anxious. There's no room for sort of negative thoughts to creep in if there's constant noise. Like I would do something as simple as tidy in the bedroom and I have to have TikTok propped up so I can scroll every sort of 30 seconds onto a new video. And sometimes I'll have the same video playing over and over and over again for like 5 minutes, but at least there's noise. So it's, as I say, that absence of anxiety. So that mindless scrolling just provides a relief of tension, and it distracts us from other things that maybe are more serious or can cause anxiety or a little bit of stress. Um, I think for ourselves, and this is where Supercharge, this isn't a plug for Supercharge by any means, but this is where Supercharge can come in. The least we can do for ourselves is replace that mindless scrolling, where, as I say, you can't even remember what the video 3 minutes, 3 seconds ago was, with something a bit more mindful, where at least you're doing it intentionally and you're going to come away from that scrolling with something to show for it. I think that is where Supercharged can at least have some sort of role.
Yeah. I think you talked about the kind of compelling nature of the feed. That's something that I think is quite actually easy to redirect if we just do something else which feels similar. That part of it is fine. Obviously, the point of supercharged is to basically reward being productive rather than scrolling. Um, we can't replace that, you know, mind-numbing kind of dopamine hit that you get from social media. But what we can do is build a community of people who have realized what's going on, exactly like people who are listening to this podcast right now, who are interested in boosting their productivity. They know that this scrolling that they're doing and this social media habit they've got is not optimal for them, and they want to make a change. And they've got aspirations, professionally, because it's all based around professional development. Think of it like a mix between LinkedIn, Discord, GitHub, even where you can publish what you're doing. The whole idea of it is we're not quitting social media. You can still have social media, but what we're doing is trying to spend some of our time on another social media where you have control over what you're seeing and it's all beneficial. This is the biggest challenge for us, and I'm not saying that we've solved it in any way, is making the feed engaging enough that you're going to go there every day. What we can do is get you to take accountability um, for when you are working. So we can basically get you to record yourself working or log your projects, show people what's going on in your life that's positive, that's productive. That way, we're essentially rewarding productivity instead of essentially hampering it with social media. So that's the whole idea. In short, it's the productive social media. I think it's a long time coming, really. Social media has got to a point where we're so far down the rabbit hole that we can't get out, and we just need to reset. I wish that we could just ask TikTok to fix their algorithms and make us see better stuff, but it's not going to happen. So we're going to fix social media one individual at a time. So you could be that next person who joins Supercharged and becomes a better version of yourself. And the best thing is it's free, and we're launching version 2 very shortly. I'm uploading it to the App Store in a few days, so tap in now because I guarantee this is going to be the biggest community in the coming years.
Get
However long it
involved.
takes, we're going to do this.
Get involved. Um, yeah, I mean, you're still on your phone, you're still using your phone. It's you get that sort of you're still scrolling. I just say it's replacement, not removal. You're still scrolling, except for it's mindful, and you've got something you can take away from it. Phones by their nature relieve stress, as I say, and that's what you're there for, and that's what you want them for. And when you're stressed, you've got less self control. You sort of when you don't make rational decisions. Um, so of course we're prone to using our phones, doom scrolling, etc., when we're anxious or avoiding something. And generally in modern life, people are anxious or stressed or nervous about something. Like I'm sure there's something that you've got an exam tomorrow, for example. You're quite a composed, confident guy. I'm sure it's not causing you masses of stress, but there'll be people who have everyone will have something this week they're anxious about that they wish they didn't have to do, that they wish they could avoid. And if you're scrolling, you're not thinking about that. It's completely, you're absent-minded. Um, I mean, as I say, a lot of this stress comes from academic stress, thinking that you're behind, or even just going on TikTok and seeing these people that are really productive, or like these gurus that are telling you you've got to have it all figured out by 20. I
Yeah,
think,
most of it's fake anyway.
of course, it's fake, yeah, but it still causes stress. And I think at least if you're scrolling on Supercharged and it's something, you're consuming productive content, you're consuming content that you're actually going to take something away from, you can sort of feel like you're not completely wasting your time. You're not scrolling there and it's not lost time. It's time where actually you're going to have something to show for it. And I think that's what's really important with Supercharged. That's definitely
Yeah,
the USP from my perspective.
yeah, for sure. I think we're giving a more honest insight into what people are doing. With Supercharged, something which I haven't really talked with you about yet is we're bringing in sort of a feature, a time lapse feature where you can essentially time lapse yourself. It also acts as a timer for your work. So you're actually getting a kind of live feed of what people are doing. So there's no cheating. You can't lie which is the biggest thing I hate about LinkedIn. We haven't really touched on LinkedIn at all,
Oh,
but the amount of just deceit that's on there, because people just want to be that post that gets the, 2,000 reactions.
it was
And
like
there's
year
sort of,
12s as well. It's like people that haven't even
yeah,
got anything to show for themselves.
talking
So
about Clash Royale. It's like, is this really the professional network that we
it
want it to
once
be?
was, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, back in the day it was good. But now that everyone's on it, and I think they're not doing enough to sort of keep it focused. So we're building basically the better LinkedIn community, I'd say.
This is what I'm saying about social media though. Like it's terrible. I can't think of one social media which is genuinely good. Like Twitter, you scroll through it and every third person is a bot or someone trying to sell you a crypto scam. Instagram is loads of ads and people just it's similar to TikTok where it's people just posting nonsense. And then TikTok is just people trying to sell you something every two or three scrolls or an advert for something which is completely irrelevant to you. And don't even get me started on LinkedIn. It's the worst place on earth. And when we both post on it because it's
We have to. We don't have another option.
yeah, what are you gonna do? Like what else do you do? But it is genuinely awful. You scroll through it and it puts me in such a bad mood. 5 minutes of being on LinkedIn, I just think it's genuine. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
don't
and the
even
thing
get me
with
started.
LinkedIn is you can just say, I did this. And you can lie about how much of it you did, and you can lie
Hmm.
about how much it means.
People eat it
Um,
up.
yeah, this puts me in the top 0.01% of grinders. Like, what does that even mean? Um,
It's a
so
completely
with
arbitrary figure.
yeah, with Supercharge, we're trying to build an authentic community. You can't lie because you're actually recording it. You're showing the actual work behind the scenes. And this is another thing. We've talked about how this lock-in, you need to essentially um, put the work in behind the scenes, day by day, repeatedly, rather than just this one day, 12-hour lock-in.
Hmm.
Um, success takes time, but what Supercharged can do is offer you that kind of continual motivation and feeling that you're going somewhere, even though you're just recording the progress. You've not got the results yet, but you're seeing yourself building towards this goal, which I think is a nice contrast to LinkedIn, where you just get to the end. You actually just forgot about half the stuff you did, but you summarize it anyway. You summarize this year-long placement that you've just done, rather than recording it every day in chunks and then cohesing it all together.
Yeah, 100%. So one thing that we have alluded to, and that I think is definitely important to note, is that it's far more effective in our experience to replace bad habits than to try and completely remove them. It's and do it incrementally rather than changing your whole life overnight. Um, scrolling definitely replaces that boredom and that silence and that anxiety that sort of gets ticking in your brain when you're not doing anything. As I say, when I'm doing like a simple task like tidying the bedroom or even eating, I have to have some sort of background noise. I was sat doing an assignment last night and Georgia and I binged an entire 21 episodes of our series. We sat there for like 3 or 4 hours and we weren't even watching it. It's just background noise because we can't physically as people these days because of social media sit in silence. It's really difficult to concentrate.
Yeah, I remember when we used to have sleepovers, you just fall asleep to TikTok. Like it would just be playing over and over again.
Yeah,
Like
so would,
kept
George
wait.
would wake up at like 4 in the morning and have to walk over and turn my phone off. Um, so yeah, as I'm like the worst for this, so it's actually quite hypocritical for me to be. And I have, since I've noticed that that's the case, I have made efforts to sort of cut that out. I don't fall asleep to TikTok anymore. I don't use social media within half an hour of bed. I just sort of lie there and just stare at the wall, which I think is at least
It's better.
at least I'm not scrolling. Um, but the background noise, etc., isn't necessarily the issue. The issue is sort of the noise in our own. It sounds really like deep, but the noise in our own head, if you like, and the fact that we're so uncomfortable with silence. The actual scrolling itself isn't the issue. It's the content that we're consuming and the things that are being put into our brain, which, as you say, the algorithms make us need and crave that dopamine hit for that comes only from scrolling and consuming that short term content.
Yeah,
Like,
I'd slightly disagree that it's not scrolling that's the issue. I think the whole short form content thing is an issue. Um, I'm not saying that in an ideal world, Supercharged would have short form content. I think short form content is a bit of an issue for our attention spans. Um,
Do you not think though, like short term, if you had say, and when I say short term, I don't mean like 8 second videos where you can just scroll to the next one. That's an issue. I mean, like if you have a 90 second clip of someone explaining a complex topic in a concise manner, that's where I think it can be useful.
yeah, of course. I'm not saying it's not useful. I just think that it's a dangerous trend away from, longer form stuff. I think our ability to focus on, say, a podcast of this length, through the whole episode. I mean, we've seen the metrics. I'm not sure many people finished this episode.
Like
Uh,
17 minutes, I think, was the
yeah,
longest
there,
anyone
there
did
it
it
is,
in one
people.
sitting.
I challenge you to finish this episode, even if we start yapping.
If anyone's even listening at this point.
Yeah, tune back in later, even if you don't like this bit, because we're going to
Yeah.
be doing some debating. But yeah, I'm just saying that scrolling. I think if we could focus on a book for an hour, still, which I'd say most of us probably can't because there's the pull of our phones. I
Mm.
think that would be more beneficial when it comes to cracking down on our work, right? Because we've talked about. I mean, there's this whole technique where you do sort of 30 minutes and then you take a 5 minute break and then you do 30 minutes and take a 5 minute break. I strongly believe that, if our attention spans hadn't been ruined, we'd probably we'd probably be able to focus for a bit longer.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, you I think it's not like we're too far gone. I think practical
No.
replacements are really important. I mean, you speak about an attention span. I even struggled listening to our last podcast episode in full, and it was me talking. If you can't listen to yourself for 40 minutes, who can you listen to? So I think practical replacements like podcasts instead of doom scrolling. I think if you can listen to 20 minutes of a podcast rather than sitting there scrolling away, it's really important and it's a really useful thing to do. I think there are productive and useful podcasts out there where actually you can come away from it having learned something. You listen to it. I know you're a big proponent of these. um I mean, even doing something, as I say, intentional is the important thing, like messaging a friend or looking something up on your phone, or yeah, just looking for something. It's so much
Mhm.
more beneficial than just sitting there and aimlessly, one, my aim is to, and I think you're probably getting to this point now, is to never pick up my phone without having something that I want to do on the phone, if that makes sense, whether it be looking something up or messaging someone. I don't ever want to be able to, and it's a long road there, but I don't ever want to have to just pick up my phone for the sake of just scrolling and getting that dopamine hit. I think that's the point that everyone should aim to get to.
Yeah, so I've been looking into this a bit recently. I put a video out at the start of the new year saying that I'd turned grayscale on my phone. I'd stopped playing games, and what was the other one? I turned off all notifications. I can report that only one of those is still in place, and that's that I've turned off all notifications. I actually still have all notifications turned off, and I found it's actually been really good. Um, that whole buzzing phone thing, usually it's so pointless. It's like Apple News. Um, you know, it's totally pointless. So when I want to focus and lock in, there's no distraction there. I know that it's not going to buzz. And it's not even knowing that it's not going to buzz. It's like the kind of just like you forget. Like I now actually just forget that my girlfriend's texted me or which I mean maybe this just portrays me in a bad light that I'm not attentive enough to my girlfriend, but I think we don't need to keep in contact with each other, all day, every day. When I
Mm.
want to just work, I should work. Grayscale, I turned that off. That was a silly idea. I'm a content creator. I don't want to be seeing my own videos in gray. And gaming, again, we've talked about balance. If yeah, I've decided gaming is something that I enjoy to do, I enjoy doing. I mean, you saw me yesterday, I was gaming. It's something I do to stay in contact with one of my friends. Several of my friends actually I play some games with my flatmates as well. Um, so I think there's scope for, I'm not saying we should just lock in and go monk mode all the time, for sure. But
I think
yeah,
that's the point we're trying to nail home here is that you can be productive without cutting out everything you enjoy, even if the things aren't necessarily productive. Like it's not like you're sitting there gaming every single night for 4 hours,
yeah,
but sitting there for a few hours on a Sunday night and playing some games with your mates, having a chat. That's not a
And
problem
as you
at
said, it's
all.
intentional game playing. It's still like obviously it's better to intentionally work or like, intentionally do something that's actually going to further because I don't believe that gaming really furthers your mind or
No,
because people say, oh, there's all this tactical
that's bollocks, mate.
prowess that you get. Nah, rubbish. Oh, yes, your fine motor skills. Yeah, whatever. I don't want to be an esports player. That's not my goal, but I think it does help me de-stress.
Mm.
So some people that will be just that'll be social media instead, and that's okay. Doom scrolling. A lot of the users of Supercharge, the sort of beta users that we've had, have said, but I actually use TikTok to de-stress after a long day. I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
don't we all? That's what it was
Yeah.
built for.
And I don't think we're replacing that. We're just, you know, making it a reward to be scrolling productively or just being productive in general. Recording your productivity, recording your projects you're doing, building up a sort of version of yourself, which is better than the 2025 version of yourself.
Cold. I like that a lot. So, would you say that obviously you're doing computer science at uni? You started coding when you were like 8. Like you're very, very much informed to speak on this issue, I think. Would you say that the technology itself is the problem in terms of, the social media companies and their algorithms, or is it a lack of human self-control and the fact that we are simply just bound to be sitting there scrolling all day? Or do you think it's a mixture of both and actually the social media companies are sort of preying on our lack of self-control?
I'm obviously going to hedge my bets and say it's a mix of the two.
Mm.
Um,
Easy cop out answer that.
yeah, well, humans are just like they're bound to be tempted. We look back even to Adam and Eve. Obviously, we're not going to get into a religious debate now because that's a very, very large can of
We'll be here
worms.
for a while, but
Yeah. Um, there's always been temptation, and it's very hard to resist. And I think it's just another kind of form of that. I think if you look at like sort of the habit of smoking, you could tie it in to that. There was a sort of massive boom of it when people didn't realize how bad smoking was for you. Everyone did it. It became a societal norm. And then it sort of faded away or even dramatically dropped as people realized just how bad it was for you. But it's still there in society, right? So it's
mm.
kind of gradually decreasing. I genuinely believe that all kind of bad habits are like that. Drinking, I mean, apparently drinking has been going down as well.
There's
Obviously
like
people.
there's alternatives, aren't there? Georgia had one of those. You've seen those trip drinks, um,
No.
advertised on TikTok Shop. It's got CBD in it, and it makes you like. I mean, I get a TikTok Shop video for it probably once every 10 scrolls. It's awful, but it makes you like it's got magnesium in it and it's got CBD in it and it just makes you feel it's got all of these ingredients that are just supposed to contribute to basically tiredness. It makes you feel a little bit woozy and it's a healthy
Mm.
alternative to alcohol. And I think if an easy way to get people to eat something up is by saying, oh, it's healthy, it's good for you, because there is definitely, and this is a really good thing, there's since probably lockdown been a massive trend towards people having or being more conscious of their health and wanting to make these positive choices, which is a good thing. And again, I don't want to keep bringing up Supercharge because it just seems like it's a massive plug episode, but it's something that you can also prey on by saying, well, actually, it's going to benefit you, which isn't a lie. It is going to benefit you. And people, again, a good thing, want to improve, want to get better. And things like alcohol alternatives to doom scrolling alternatives, it's not about removal, it's about replacement. So they can all help and they've all definitely got a role.
Yeah, I think it's a real positive about society, actually. Everyone is looking to be productive and healthy and better. And I think the standards have gone massively up. I mean, you look at how hard it was to get into like Oxford in the 1950s. Obviously, there were less people in the world, so it's going to be easier. But the standards of the academic standards, the work standards, I mean, you've seen the ridiculous job application culture now. We've talked about LinkedIn, how crazy people go, and I'm sure some of it is rubbish. They're just making stuff up. but you hear people who are, I mean, certainly for computer science, as you mentioned, I'm doing computer science. For to get into the top jobs like Google, OpenAI, these top AI companies, you're having to, you know data structures and algorithms inside out. You're having to put, you know, months, years worth of work into
Mate,
a
we're
short
going.
space
Don't
of
even get
time.
me. We're going to get talking about grad schemes and how to get a job after uni, etc. That in another episode. That's
Yeah.
yeah. There's again another rabbit hole. But so, do you think? I mean, you've spoken about how you're not trying to replace TikTok, etc. Do you think that what you're doing is replacing doom scrolling is just sort of a gateway to that instant dopamine hit, and people will do 5 minutes scrolling on supercharge and then reward themselves by having a scroll on TikTok?
Yeah, so it was quite amusing. I applied to a university startup competition with my co-founder, and one of their points of feedback was you're encouraging a potentially damaging addictive habit. And I was thinking, no, I'm not. I'm I'm getting rid of a potentially dangerous addictive habit. Obviously, the format it's in is in this kind of same format, and it may be that there's a world where Supercharged would kind of tend to the same, you know, people pleasing, advertiser pleasing sort of feel. That's not where it's going. Um, we want to be kind of uplifting people, but I see that the end goal, I don't think, is this scroll format. Personally, I think we can do better than that, and we can go back to kind of long form and stuff. However, as you've said, there is a place for short form, and that place is extracting meaningful insights like clips from a bigger episode, ex squashing it into a short space of time. We're people who have got less and less time these days. We're busy, busy, busy. So having that there, you come on, you get a feel for what's going on in the world, you feel good about that scrolling that you've done, you get back on with your day. I'm not saying that you should spend 3 hours on Supercharged every day. Uh, if you do, great. I'll be very pleased. But that's not really what it's for.
I mean, I've been quite positive. Not, I haven't been positive about short form content and that constant scrolling because I haven't, and I don't think it's a good thing. But I think it's all about balance, as you say. And if you can spend 90 seconds watching a video where you probably maybe get a lot of information in a short space of time, then that's super beneficial. That's brilliant because, as you say, everyone's so busy. And again, not an expert, but I saw something the other day, and I don't know how much truth there is in it, but obviously we all feel like time is absolutely flying by, and like we were 14 2 minutes ago, and now we're 20 in a couple of months, or in a couple of weeks in your case.
Yeah.
um but apparently, and I don't know how much truth there is in this again, so it's important to mitigate, but because we're now, our generation, are consuming so much information, there's something, and I'm not a scientific expert, so I'm going to butcher the wording of it, but basically time moves quicker. And because of we're so busy and our lives are moving so quickly and we've got so much new information going into our brains every single day, that means that time flies and we basically have less time to just sit and appreciate and stand still. And I think actually something that I've been trying to do in my life, and we're on the topic of productivity and sort of maximizing life, and something that I've been enjoying doing is just sitting there and slowing down and doing nothing, whether it's just sort of having a morning where I don't do any work, I don't sit on my phone and scroll. I sat the other day when I was trying to get off my phone, and I got a pad out and a pen, and I just wrote down every single athlete that I could think of. And I was there for like 40 minutes, writing down like 400 athletes. Um, but just things like that, intentional things where maybe I'm not being productive or getting stuff done, but just slowing down for my own mental health, I think it's really beneficial.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit silly, I'll be honest. You have a bit of an aversion to reading books. Personally, I would have
On
just
a
read.
version, not I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah. Um, I guess each to their own. Um,
I don't mind non-fiction. I don't mind reading about something that I genuinely am interested in, or someone that
yeah.
I'm genuinely interested in. But I don't want to sit. I just find it boring to sit there reading
Mm.
fiction, which I think again probably something to do with the way I used to love fiction, and then I was like 11 and I got a phone, and I just haven't been interested since. And that's the point we're making here.
Well,
Like,
yeah, your brain compares it. It's like,
yeah,
well, I can do this, which is I have to use my imagination to work out what's going on
yeah,
in the
yeah,
which the imagination's a very powerful thing, and I think we're killing it. And I think we'll probably do an episode on imagination or something around that. Um, but yeah, it's as we've said all episode long. It's about gradually changing, waking up that 15 minutes earlier every day. You know, scrolling that 15 minutes less every day, being that
exactly.
5% more productive every day, rather than having this, oh, my exam's in 2 days, let me lock in for 12
Yeah,
hours straight on both days, then be burnt out for the exam.
yeah,
Or then after the exam, you just sleep all day. Let's try and balance it out because someone who does 4 hours of good work every day is going to be better than someone who does 12 hours work once a week.
100%. I think on that and talking about that incremental nature of how you can improve, suggestion from me and George is a challenge for anyone. If you've made it this far in the episode, then clearly you're doing quite well, and your dopamine receptors aren't as cooked as 99% of us. Um, a sort of scroll swap challenge where what you need to do is go and find the app you use the most, probably going to be TikTok, Instagram, something like that. And then find a period of the day where you use it most. So, for example, for me, it would probably be TikTok at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been working all morning and I just sit there for half an hour and I scroll and I do nothing productive and I feel like an absolute thumb. I get nothing from it. So identify that period where you're sort of getting, using this app and there's nothing productive coming off the back of it, and replace that time with something intentional, something doesn't even have to be that productive, but something other than scrolling, whether it be just like going for a walk or listening to a podcast, even having a catch up with a friend, messaging or calling a friend, and having a chat with them. Um, Even like doing a little bit of uni work or whatever it might be, something where you're not scrolling and actually you look back at it and you think, I've got more from that than I would have done scrolling. If you can do that, then fair play, you're on the right
Yeah,
path.
bonus points if you post it on Supercharged. The new version's coming in a few days. So download it, get a post on there, and we will shout you out next episode.
It's bragging rights. In 2 years' time, when everyone's on supercharged, you'll be that person who says, "Yeah, I remember when I was one of the first 100 users." So get
Yeah.
on it.
Well, 200. We got 200 now.
Ah, look at me. I'm behind.
Close enough.
Um, so yeah, that's been our episode on doom scrolling, on productivity, and sort of our own experiences with going monk mode compared with just sort of habit stacking. Replacement is better than removal. That's a mouthful, but yeah, replacement, not removal. That's the message we're trying to drill home here. You don't have to just sit there and like sit at a grayscale laptop all day typing and then go to sleep having not done anything enjoyable. But equally, if you can make those enjoyable things that are slightly more productive rather than just scrolling for 6 hours a day, then you're on the right path. If you've made it this far, then you're definitely on the right path with regards to scrolling because this has been a longer episode. Thank you very much for listening and hopefully see you soon.
Thanks, guys.